Stick with me, you and I are diving right into the heart of the capital city Astrium. Suddenly, a guard spots something massive approaching and completely panics. He screams his lungs out, warning everyone that the demon lord's monstrous army is officially attacking. Another soldier joins the absolute chaos, yelling that this invasion force is led by a legendary demon general, commanding his entire squad to intercept them immediately. While brave soldiers rush to the front lines, a hopeful woman stays behind, praying for the great god Reaps to protect their innocent souls out on the battlefield. A young swordsman is already gasping for air, truly feeling the heavy burden of this battle. He stares down at a defeated monster, suddenly realizing he is only fighting the lowest tier lesser demons. Even so, he admits, these creatures are unbelievably tough, struggling hard to find any real openings or weaknesses in their solid defenses. Another warrior totally agrees, mentioning that this insane power is exactly what anyone would expect from an army commanded by an elite general. But then, the confident blonde guy turns around with a massive grin, acting like this terrifying situation is just a walk in the park. The heavy mood shifts instantly when the soldiers realize they have backup. After all, they have the legendary hero group everyone has eagerly anticipated. You are going to want to see this. The crowd erupts because hero Levin is leading the pack, looking completely unfazed by this massive, terrifying monster army. He actually finds it hilarious that a demon general would dare raid the city while an overpowered hero like him is wandering around town. Garius catches that confident smirk and points out that Levin seems genuinely excited for this battle. But Sage Noelle is absolutely not having any of it. She strictly warns Garius to take this seriously, or he will face a tragic end. Garius simply laughs it off, calling himself bad, while Paul just sighs heavily at how ridiculously casual everyone is acting. But the squad's youngest member clenches his fists, cheerfully declaring that everything will be okay. Wish is incredibly hyped, shouting that with the 5 of them united, they can easily crush absolutely any enemy standing. The 18-year-old merchant beams with energy, urging the veteran pros to protect every single person in this town. Garius completely cracks up and gives Wish a playful smack, joking that the kid talks exactly like a bold hero, despite being pretty weak. But Noelle is totally out of patience for jokes. She plainly states she does not care what happens to Wish. But Garius really needs to stop taking things so lightly, leaving Garius utterly confused, while Wish sadly wonders why he is being totally ignored right now. Pal speaks up to refocus the team, warning that the enemy commander they face is Lilium of the Abyssal Silver Ice, an absolute beast. Apparently, we both know this means big trouble. She possesses more power than any general, holding a crazy amount of mana and top-tier ice magic that most people only hear about in legends. She is basically a living legend, and rumors say she is the absolute strongest fighter in this entire invasion. Instead of backing down, Garius punches his palm eagerly, claiming he would love to fight her, making poor Wish super nervous. So, Wish decides to help out by showing off his gear. He has every single healing potion and essential item perfectly packed and fully ready, cheerfully shouting at the top of his lungs for the pros to leave all the support duties to him. Wish desperately tries staying positive, cheering that winning means saving countless innocent lives. But Garius bluntly tells the kid to just stay entirely out of their way. Levin totally agrees, reminding the kid that his only actual job is simply scooping up loot from the fallen monsters. The hero asks if a slowpoke like him can at least manage that basic task, and Wish just gives a super nervous nod in response. Marching out, Wish stares at the hero's back, suddenly realizing the guy is secretly dealing with immense stress. But Levin just commands the whole squad to move. Noelle completely agrees, thinking that heavy pressure makes perfect sense for this epic battle. While Wish silently promises not to be a burden, the party charges into the chaotic fray, instantly shredding a demon, leaving Garius looking incredibly bored. He slowly cleans his shining blade, loudly complaining they have only encountered weak, low-tier trash today. He demands to know where the big boss Lilium is hiding, but Noelle starts looking very worried, raising her staff and warning everyone she cannot trace Lilium's massive mana signature anywhere nearby. Levin is caught entirely off guard, wondering if something like that is even possible, while the confused team stands around waiting to fight. Meanwhile, Liam desperately tries acting cool, staring at the glowing mark on her hand, whispering that everything is perfectly fine, while her loyal demon soldiers stand by, confirming the scary group is definitely her personal army. Way out at a distant camp near Rocky Hills, someone starts questioning their exact location while clueless demon troops just waste time, awkwardly moving heavy supplies around the quiet tents. Now, what do you and I make of this? The terrifying Lilium is just nervously biting her nails, completely clueless if they are actually winning. For a top-tier executive, things look pretty terrible. She suddenly spots a wolfman demon carrying heavy gear and frantically yells for him to stop there. The guy is totally confused. Stick with me here. She immediately asks how the battlefield is looking, desperately begging him to confirm they are actually winning. Once he gives the news, she gets excited and shouts they finally have the upper hand. Lilium laughs like a total maniac, saying humans are not a big deal at all. Bragging? It is clearly because she is running the show. But then her tone completely flips, telling the demon soldier that this amazing victory is actually thanks to his hard work. Lilium looks him right in the eye, confidently telling him she expects even bigger things moving forward. But deep inside, she is actually freaking out with pure relief, knowing the other high-ranking demons would never let her hear the end of it if she failed. She knows those guys are constantly looking for any excuse to take her down. The thought alone makes her pout, since demon society is completely obsessed with merit and power, and she totally gets why those big nobles act like they own the place. Still, she thinks that does not give them any right to look down on a commoner like her. Yet just thinking about losing makes her tremble, wondering what awful treatment is waiting back home if she actually fails. Lilium gets completely fired up and yells that she is winning this battle, because she absolutely cannot afford to lose right now. But she is so caught up in her head that the wolf demon actually has to ask why she is still standing around. Lilium listens as the wolf demon explains the crazy situation, nodding along like she gets it. But then she completely loses her cool, absolutely freaking out and asking if the legendary hero is actually here. Down on the battlefield, Levin and his whole squad are completely surrounding one pathetic little demon. Lilium watches from the cliff, thinking it is incredibly weird that an entire top-tier party is ganging up on some low-level mob. She cannot help but laugh out loud while the wolf demon basically says, "This hero is looking like a total letdown." Moving on, she notices someone else trailing behind the group and wonders if this girl is supposed to be another companion. Meanwhile, Wish is just standing there looking at the loot, totally stoked, because they scored a great haul that will sell for a ton. Now pay attention to this. Someone suddenly starts screaming at a girl to move her feet, calling her complete trash. It is a young girl struggling to carry a massive barrel of heavy swords, and she is shaking while she apologizes to a mean soldier. He just storms off while she stumbles after him, leaving Wish watching the whole thing with a genuinely bad feeling. Wish is watching the entire scene unfold, saying they are doing such terrible things, right as a demon gets caught in a brutal exchange in the middle of the fierce fight. Wish is sweating, realizing it is a lesser demon and wondering how a low-tier mob is actually this tough. But a nearby soldier keeps swinging wildly, yelling at the monster while he tries to hold the line. Wish looks back at the girl on the ground, telling her she has to hurry up and run, but she is clutching her back, looking deeply pained, and saying she cannot even stand. His eyes go totally wide as he realizes how bad this is getting. He knows that just holding these demons back is definitely not enough to save anyone. Looking at the demon standing there, he decides he has to finish them off right now. I know what you are thinking. Can he actually win against an enemy that usually takes an entire hero's party to defeat? Wish stares at the monster, thinking there is just no way a simple merchant like him can win. But he tells himself to stay focused, wondering if there is anything he can actually pull off. He starts frantically searching the beast, trying to see if there is a weakness he can exploit. And that is when he spots something weird, asking himself what that strange light is. It is coming right off the monster, and he notices it does not look like normal magic. That glow actually feels strangely warm to him as he stares at it. Suddenly, the monster lunges, and he barely manages to dodge out of the way just in time. He realizes it is game over if he hesitates for even a single second. So Wish decides, it is all or nothing. He charges in with everything he has got, aiming his blade directly at that glowing light to finish this once and for all. Wish jumps high above the demon, shouting for it to take this hit as he brings his blade down. He connects with a massive strike, completely destroying the monster in a brilliant burst of light. Everyone watching is stunned, and the little elf girl cannot believe what she is seeing. Even the other demons nearby are confused by what just happened. While a lone soldier stares up, Wish collapses to the solid ground, catching his breath and feeling so relieved he actually made it through. He tells himself he just got lucky, but he is genuinely glad he kept the woman completely safe. People in the crowd start whispering, asking who the guy with the knife is and if he is some famous adventurer. They cheer for him, and some people even start wondering if he is actually the legendary hero. And that is where we leave it. Garius is absolutely losing his mind, screaming that Wish took down a demon solo. Meanwhile, Levin just stands there, watching this wild scene with a serious face. Come along with me here, Wish points far ahead, insisting they absolutely must get this woman back safely. But hero Levin just looks incredibly annoyed, asking why he should even bother saving a simple everyday citizen. Levin starts walking away, telling Wish to stop worrying and focus entirely on grabbing materials. Before pay decreases, Wish tries stopping him fast, shouting that social status never matters when saving a person's life. But the arrogant hero completely ignores his earnest words. Suddenly, Levin sees flares shooting into the sky. Realizing it is the exact signal to use their secret weapon, he quickly waves Wish off, claiming they are out of time and must rush back to the wall, leaving the small demon girl running for her life, totally terrified by the massive, overwhelming energy heading her way. She breaks down crying, screaming about how absolutely terrifying the hero's party is, while desperately trying to escape there. The girl lets out one final shocked yell as intense pressure builds. Nearby soldiers start panicking, screaming for absolutely everyone to take cover right now because something huge is firing. Now watch closely. The demon porter girl looks up at the massive mechanical barrel, completely speechless, realizing it is the Volvarn, insane heavy artillery built by a reincarnator specifically to hunt down high-ranking demons. She knows exactly how much devastating damage this weapon has caused the demon lord's forces in the past, and she completely loses it, screaming at the humans for actually bringing something so incredibly dangerous out there. There is zero chance the demons can beat a weapon like that. She just keeps calling them complete idiots for trying. The nearby demon soldiers are just as stunned. Realizing the entire situation has completely turned against them, they do not waste a single second and begin a full retreat, running hard as the quick command to pull back drops. One of the hyped soldiers on the high wall points, shouting that Lilium's army is finally retreating. This sparks a massive celebration as everyone joyfully yells about their awesome, hard-earned victory today. While everyone else cheers loudly, Garius just looks incredibly bored, remarking that for a demon lord's army, those guys were honestly pretty weak. Levin glances back at the fleeing demons, seriously questioning if that was really Lilium's army, but Garius just shrugs, slapping Wish on the back and telling him he did an amazing job out there, too, which simply makes Wish laugh happily. Levin really isn't feeling it, though. He acts super annoyed, convincing himself the whole battle was probably just luck. The crew hits a local tavern for food and drinks after fighting, but things get tense incredibly fast. Wish looks completely devastated, desperately asking Levin to repeat what he just said. Levin casually takes a drink, rudely asking Wish if he is deaf, confirming he meant every single word. Let that sink in for a second. He looks Wish directly in the eyes, says he is totally useless, and straight up kicks him out. Wish is completely blindsided, practically begging to know why this is suddenly happening, while Garius just sits there acting totally cold. Sage Noel pipes up and smugly adds they only ever kept him around as a simple baggage carrier so they could travel extremely light and focus purely on the real main mission. Wish keeps fighting for a reason, asking why Levin is bringing this up now knowing he is never as strong as them. But arrogant Levin absolutely refuses to listen anymore. Levin rudely asks why Wish thinks he can talk back. He warns him not to get cocky just for helping random folks. Levin claims he is out here saving the world, never viewing Wish as an equal. This leaves poor Wish completely speechless, as the quiet, lonely city streets stretch endlessly out right in front of him. Sometime later, Wish walks through town carrying all his gear, releasing a massive sigh. He truly cannot believe they viewed him that horribly, especially since he strongly felt he was doing his best part for the team. He just stands there, deeply wondering what to do with his entire life now, when a random girl suddenly calls out to him. She looks incredibly nervous as she walks closer, asking if he is actually the guy named Wish. He just stands there, completely confused, gently asking who she is and what she wants today. The girl thanks Wish for helping her out earlier. He looks pretty surprised that she's even bringing it up to him. He starts blushing and gets super shy, awkwardly claiming it was nothing, but she refuses listening. She tells him he is totally wrong, because he was the only one he even tried helping. Wish simply smiles, saying he is super glad she is safe. She heads off, leaving Wish standing right there in the street, deeply remembering why he originally started this grand journey. He really wanted to be a merchant everyone liked. He can clearly remember the exact day it started. Back when he was a little kid, he firmly promised himself he would become a great merchant like Grandpa. Gripping his bag tight, he knows the awesome person he wants to become would never surrender over. Getting kicked out, he finally has a brand new, super exciting game plan. Wish looks incredibly serious, telling himself he just needs to follow his own strong beliefs and boldly keep moving forward. So what do you and I take from this? Imagining people worldwide, he dreams about enriching their lives, which honestly gets him completely hyped up. Let's dive right in. Looking over those town rooftops, he pumps his fist. Time for some real merchant work today. Now that his mind is totally set, he needs to get everything ready for his big trip. Strolling through the streets, he figures Luvik is absolutely the best spot for a base. Now, what exactly does he need to get this exciting journey started? Sporting a massive grin on his face, he heads off right into the city, telling the whole wide world to just wait and see his success. He absolutely swears to himself that he will become an epic merchant no matter what happens, aiming to make the whole wide world a lot better through his trade. But while he feels so inspired, someone runs nearby. She sounds totally annoyed, letting out a super loud sigh. This frustrated elf girl yells that she almost got completely wiped out because of whatever crazy thing just went down here. Back inside the terrifying demon lord's castle, Liam is throwing a massive fit. She is loudly yelling about why she is the one who has to lead this human town invasion, and starts violently punching a stone pillar, complaining she only handles domestic work. She has zero combat experience against humans at all, continually smacking the hard stone. She rants that making her a commander in the first place was an absolutely huge and terrible mistake. Getting incredibly worked up, she lets out one final frustrated shout, slamming her fist right into that pillar, but she hits it way too hard and starts losing it. She cries out in agonizing pain because she totally wrecked her hand on that stone. Now, pay close attention here. While she hops around, clutching her injured hand, a voice from behind mockingly asks about her new dance, making Lilium completely freeze. A laughing, hooded guy stands right there, telling her she returned from her mission way earlier than expected. Lilium looks absolutely terrified. Now, she quickly recognizes him as Dwayne, the supreme commander of the entire Demon Lord's army. He just gives her this super smug look, and says he guesses the whole situation cannot really be helped at all. But then he starts laughing at her, teasing that taking down a fortress city was clearly way too much for someone like her to handle. Dwayne just sighs and shakes his head at Lilium, openly calling it pretty pathetic for a high-level ice magic user to be acting like that. He keeps poking fun at her, mentioning she is still just as short-tempered as she has always been, and Lilium finally snaps back, sweating and looking incredibly stressed. She angrily asks why she was even put on this invasion mission when she obviously is not the right fit for it. Dwayne easily shrugs it off, telling her he is totally aware of her situation. However, he coldly reminds her that in the ruthless demon world, strength is the only thing that actually matters at the end. Then he casually drops a massive bombshell, explaining that the whole invasion was actually just a test, which catches Lilium completely off her guard. She starts panicking hard, asking him if this means he is planning on demoting her to a lower rank again. So Dwayne tells her it is not that simple. You and I saw that coming, right? He says things are worse than a demotion. Getting a really smug look, he straight up tells her there is absolutely zero place for her in the Demon Lord's army anymore. Lilium just stands there looking crushed while he bluntly tells her she should already understand what happens, given how terribly she failed the results of his test. Meanwhile, Wish is out on the road, enjoying the vibes and saying how blue the sky looks and how fresh the air feels today. With a huge smile on his face, he thinks about how his journey has been going perfectly smooth so far. Sadly, that amazing feeling does not last long. He starts thinking about leaving town for the merchant city, but suddenly realizes he has ended up right in the middle of some old ruins. wondering why there is all this broken stone in a place like this. He walks further into the deep rubble toward a massive stone tower, quietly asking himself if there was even supposed to be a ruined castle around here. Suddenly, he hears somebody nearby sniffling and crying, making him realize he might actually be completely lost. He looks over and sees a girl sitting on a rock with her head in her hands, sobbing away. Wish rushes over to check on her, asking if she is okay and lost too, but then he suddenly stops. Lilium looks up at him with teary eyes, and Wish finally notices her pointy ears sticking right out. He completely loses his mind. Jumping back and drawing his sword, he yells about finding a demon. Wish points his finger and shouts that she is the hero's companion, but the elf girl looks just as shocked to see him. She starts screaming for help at the top of her lungs, leaving Wish standing there completely confused. He asks what a demon lord's army member is doing out here, noticing she seems way weaker than he originally expected. Lilium keeps sobbing and tells him she became one, while Wish just stares at her with absolute zero clue what she actually means. She finally lets it all out, yelling about getting absolutely fired from the demon lord's army. Wish is left completely speechless. The sound of her crying echoes all through the broken stone ruins, while Wish just stands right over her. Can you believe this? He tries processing the crazy news, wondering if he heard right, while she keeps wailing on the ground. Stick with me here, because this is wild. He asks out loud if she seriously got fired from the Demon King's army. It hits him right then. Finding a random demon just casually hanging out in human territory is extremely weird. He thinks to himself that simply seeing a monster here is strange enough, but finding one that actually lost its job is next level crazy. Meanwhile, Lilium is having a total meltdown, crying so intensely that Wish cannot even understand what she is trying to say. He pauses for a quick second to think, realizing that something about this whole situation is starting to feel off. Wish remembers hearing that any demon capable of human speech is usually a high-tier threat, packing tons of power, and he thinks back to those legendary upper-class demons he learned about. Monsters, way more dangerous than your average low-level fry. Even their raw magic feels completely different from anything else around, which makes him stare back at the wailing girl in front of him, wondering if she is actually a top-tier threat despite crying like a total baby. Lilium just keeps sobbing about how hard she tries and how cruel life is, while Wish stands there feeling incredibly awkward. He decides he can probably handle this and puts his sword away, but that just makes Lilium scream and jump back in absolute fear. Wish gives her a flat look, asking what she is doing here and what her deal is. Lilium finally calms down just enough to look up at him, completely shocked, asking how he even knows her. Now, pay close attention here. She cries into her cloth, explaining she recognizes him from the battlefield as a former demon army commander. Wish looks at her like she has completely lost her mind, asking if someone as pathetic as her was seriously supposed to be a commander. Lilium immediately snaps out of her crying fit with a massive grin, happily telling him that he finally gets it. She starts loudly bragging about being a top-tier executive known as Lilium of the Abyssal Silver Ice, even offering him the treat of calling her Lady Lilium. Wish just stands right over her with a totally deadpan look, telling her straight up that if she plans to lie, she should really try to make it sound believable. He starts lecturing her, pointing out the real Lilium is supposed to be a legendary ice mage packing a crazy amount of power. He points out that if she were really that legendary person, her raw magic would be so intense that everything around them would be frozen solid already. Wish looks her up and down, calmly noting he cannot feel even a single drop of magic coming off her at all, so he just tells her straight up that she is obviously some low-tier small fry. This reality check hits Lilium so hard, she physically flies backward, leaving her moping on the ground, scratching the dirt, and complaining about him being so mean. Lilium just sits there in the dirt, looking completely defeated, crying about being a totally crappy demon after all. This actually makes Wish panic, wondering if he went way too far with his insults, even though he is definitely not one to talk. Lilium looks down with a suddenly serious expression, claiming she actually used to be a genuinely massive deal back in the demon realm. She explains how everyone saw her as a super promising rookie, placing tons of heavy expectations directly onto her tiny shoulders. So she worked her tail off to support the Demon Lord's army, pushing through, even when it felt like she was carrying everything completely alone. You and I have both felt that, right? She gets visibly frustrated thinking back on how she gave absolutely everything. yet still got fired just because she could not win a real fight. Lillian totally loses her cool, loudly screaming about the awful old geezer who kicked her out. But then, she suddenly stops, explaining that is not even the part making her the most upset. Clenching her fist, she tells him the truly infuriating stuff started happening right after she lost her job. Dwayne just stands there looking at her, telling her that she probably already knows how the rest of this story goes. He drops the absolute hammer, telling Lillian she is officially fired from the army. She stands there completely stunned. Just then, some random demon girl in the back starts cracking up, loudly laughing about Lillian getting the boot. Lillian looks over at this stranger, asking who she is even supposed to be. The girl gives a big wink and a peace sign, acting completely bubbly while introducing herself. She says her name is Lumi, and she actually took Lillian's spot as an executive. Dwayne just walks away, casually telling the higher-ups that Lumi is an absolute pro and they can totally trust her with everything now. Lumi happily heads off too, throwing one last insult back, calling her old senpai seriously lame. Lillian finally hits her absolute breaking point, screaming at the top of her lungs about being completely pissed off. Wish takes everything in and sighs, telling her it honestly sounds like being a demon is a pretty rough gig. Lillian snaps back at Wish, telling him she doesn't need his pity, and just sits there on the ground looking super annoyed. So where does this leave us? Wish sits on some rubble nearby and opens up, telling her the truth is, he has his own story. He looks down and casually reveals that until just recently, he was actually a member of the Heroes Party. Let's dive in. Wish recalls the day his life completely unraveled. Right, during a massive clash with the Demon King's forces. He says he simply could not ignore a defenseless girl under attack, but stepping up to save her actually made the hero incredibly furious. Ultimately, they totally booted him from their squad. So today, he is just an average merchant working hard to scrape by. Wish says sorry for the dull tale, adding he only shared it to relate to her feelings. But Lillian just sits there totally silent. Her eyes swell with tears as she whispers that he suffered too, leaving Wish standing there looking incredibly confused. Suddenly, she completely breaks down in tears, crying out that he must have endured so much terrible pain alone. Wish just freezes in pure shock, completely clueless on how to react now that she is actually pitying him. Caught entirely off guard by her sudden emotional breakdown, Wish loudly asks what the heck is wrong with her. Lillian keeps crying, claiming she cannot stop because she finally realizes exactly how tough his journey was. Her tears keep pouring out, while Wish frantically tries telling her there is absolutely no need to cry over him. She keeps weeping, crying out that she fully understands the pain of being abandoned. Lillian suddenly stands with the super dramatic expression, shouting she gets it. Wish desperately begs her to stop, but her wailing only gets louder. Wish starts practically yelling at her to just listen for one tiny second, but she is way too deep into her emotional breakdown. Finally, she abruptly stops, towering over him with intense eyes. She announces a massive decision, leaving him sitting there looking completely lost. Watch closely here. She stares right into his eyes and declares she is absolutely tagging along on his adventure. Lillian bounces up to ask his name. He replies that it is Wish, though he is still totally freaked out by this whole situation. Throwing his hand up, Wish begs her to pause, insisting he never meant that and questioning why she suddenly wants to team up. Lillian just gives him a blank stare, eagerly asking where their very first destination lies. Lillian keeps shouting for him to listen, but an exhausted Wish simply points out they are merely heading toward a boring merchant city. She asks if he means Lumi, then points away, revealing the city is actually in the exact opposite direction. Wish is absolutely blown away that she actually knows geography. Lillian proudly brags about her past gig running internal affairs for the Demon King, meaning she knows every single town and country around here. Calling him a clueless merchant, she proudly offers to be his personal guide, and Wish quietly admits that would actually be a massive help. He remains completely confused, still wondering why she is so obsessed with following his journey. Lillian looks away, muttering how incredibly frustrating it is that they work so hard, only to be tossed aside like absolute trash. You and I know that feeling, she declares. They must team up to prove everyone wrong. Wearing a fiercely determined expression, she vows they will show the world they can thrive on their own. Wish sighs heavily, staring at the ground. Finding the idea incredibly reckless, he still cracks a small smile and agrees she is right. He finally realizes her past was just as heartbreaking and difficult as his own. Gripping his sword, Wish decides if they are doing this, they need a strategy. Officially forming a temporary two-person party for the road. Lillian looks totally fired up, while Wish senses this is merely the opening chapter of a much grander adventure. Their journey begins with high spirits and light steps, as they finally hit the trail straight toward that bustling merchant city. But the peace vanishes instantly when a monstrous, towering bear suddenly appears right behind poor Lillian. This massive beast looms over them right in the middle of the path, looking incredibly deadly. Wish and Lillian instantly lose their minds, screaming in sheer panic at this sudden giant bear. Pure panic sets in. Wish cannot fathom encountering such a terrifying monster this early on. Shouting to retreat instantly, Wish hilariously grabs Lillian by the hair to stop her blind running, desperately yelling at her to just hold on a second. Choking back a gasp, Lillian furiously spins around and screams, asking if he wants her destroyed. She throws an absolute tantrum, but Wish angrily snaps back that he almost got wiped out first. Lillian loudly shrieks that this beast is terrible news, calling it the natural enemy of adventurers. While Lillian keeps completely losing it, Wish hears a rumble and glances back, just as the massive beast unleashes an epic roar, smashing the solid ground to absolute pieces. Trust me, you would run too. Wish desperately sprints away, loudly screaming about what that creature actually is. Lillian bolts right beside him, screaming that they are in some incredibly serious trouble right now. She explains this monster is called Gordon, a terrifying beast known for bringing ultimate doom to everyone. They keep frantically scrambling through the deep woods while Lillian begs him to fight, but Wish yells that is completely and utterly impossible. Stick with me. Wish just realized their current situation is an absolute total nightmare. He warns Lillian they cannot keep running or they are both completely finished for sure. Wish decides they desperately need a brand new plan right now. Lillian has absolutely no idea what he is thinking, totally panicking as he tells her they must take a massive gamble. Lillian completely screams as Wish uses his load ability to launch them both high into the air. A massive blast suddenly goes off, hitting the ground and knocking the giant monster backward. Landing safely, Wish tries catching his breath, telling her he thinks they finally shook those monsters. He is incredibly relieved they survived, but Lillian just lies face down, looking absolutely, totally dizzy. Wish looks at her, mentioning he has been thinking about how she used to be a huge deal. He seriously asks why a former demon lord executive cannot just crush these wild monsters like it is absolutely nothing. Lillian starts totally freaking out, quietly muttering that there is zero chance this is happening. She panics, realizing she cannot even use her magic right now. Wish looks down, sounding incredibly skeptical, asking if she is actually that famous ice and snow magic user he always heard about. Lillian loudly yells that her powerful prime was a long time ago, and now she is just an absolutely helpless, total weakling. She claims humanity is completely at fault here, and since Wish is an otherworldly reincarnator, he has zero right to complain about it. Wish stands there looking down, completely confused about what she is getting at, so he asks what she means. Lillian suddenly gets a super serious look and drops an absolute bombshell. The real reason she became so incredibly weak is literal global warming. You and I are probably making the exact same blank face Wish is right now, trying to process this wild global warming excuse. Lillian keeps going, heavily explaining that global temperatures are rapidly rising lately, entirely because of foreign technology brought over from the other world, leaving Wish completely and utterly speechless. She finishes by explaining the intense heat dries up airborne water, mana, which is exactly why her incredible powers keep failing her. Wish desperately tells her to hold on a second. Still completely stuck on the basics, he asks what mana actually is. Lillian realizes it makes total sense. He is lost, saying a regular merchant would not know technical terms. She starts breaking it down perfectly, explaining that mana is essentially the basic building blocks of magic, consisting of four main elements: water, fire, wind, and earth. By mixing these specific elements together, mages can easily create various epic spells like ice or lightning. But bringing it back, she insists her water power is super weak right now simply because of global warming. Thanks to this extreme heat, she cannot fuse mana together properly, causing her famous ice magic to fail completely. Wish simply looks over, honestly asking why she does not just use a different element. Making a highly frustrated noise, Lillian gets visibly embarrassed, finally admitting out loud that ice magic is the absolute only thing she can actually do. Wish quickly starts piecing it all together, wondering if this legendary ice mage is truly just a. Disbelieving this nonsense, Wish asks if she seriously only knows ice magic, openly calling her a highly specialized idiot. Lillian yells to shut up, angrily asking what is wrong with that, just as a massive monster pole violently slams down, completely shattering the ground right behind them. Watch closely. A massive, terrifying bear monster suddenly drops in, wrecking the entire forest and sending them both frantically running for their lives. Lillian completely starts freaking out because she truly thinks the monster finally found her. Wish clearly sees her genuine terror, especially since this giant beast has completely blocked their absolute only way out of the area. Grabbing a bunch of rocks, Lillian desperately tries acting incredibly tough, boldly daring the giant monster to come and get her. Stammering out loud, she claims her ultimate move will blast it away, but Wish easily sees right through this bluff, realizing she is literally just gripping a totally normal stone to throw. Knowing he absolutely cannot rely on Lillian's faded strength right now, he bravely decides that he has to be the one stepping up. Wish holds his ground with his sword drawn, but knows he is in massive trouble since winning a direct clash against this beast is impossible. He searches for any kind of tactical opening, tensely wondering if there is any potential weakness to exploit and somehow survive this mess. Suddenly, a totally mysterious voice speaks directly to him, promising that everything is going to be alright. Wish is absolutely caught off guard, looking around wildly, trying to find the speaker, but he quickly realizes these strange, mysterious words are actually echoing right inside his own head. The strange voice speaks again, assuring him that things are totally fine, telling him to aim straight for the light. Highly confused at first, Wish desperately asks what light this voice is talking about, but then, he finally sees it. A brilliantly bright glowing point suddenly appears directly on the center of the giant bear's chest, perfectly exposing the monster's core weak spot. Wish locks onto the exact target, knowing this is his only shot. He looks completely shocked as he stares at the mysterious glowing light. He recognizes this bizarre feeling, wondering if it is happening again exactly like last time. So what do you and I make of this? A weird trail of light starts flowing directly from the bear's chest toward Wish, showing him a perfectly clear path to strike. Stick with me here. He spots the bright light, realizing it highlights the monster's exact weak point. Lillian stands nearby, totally stammering in fear, while Wish just laughs nervously because he has absolutely no clue how to actually pull this off. Still, he glances over at the panicking elf girl, casually asking if she noticed the glowing light yet. Seeing the bright energy trail wrapping his arms, he realizes he might be the only one who can actually see this happening. The monstrous bear roars right in their faces, but Wish stands his ground even though the situation looks incredibly bad. While Lillian is busy screaming her absolute head off, Wish spots a perfect opening and leaps forward, sword drawn. He grunts hard from the pressure. He completely admits he has no idea what this mysterious light is, but follows its path anyway, wondering what wild future this power will bring as he dives in for the final strike. Wish drives his shining sword straight into the glowing weak point on the monster's chest. Now watch this closely. The massive impact creates a giant energy explosion, blowing absolutely everything in the area back. The massive bear completely collapses with the final heavy groan, defeated for good as an exhausted Wish steps away. But the wild wind takes a toll, and he grunts, realizing his whole body suddenly feels heavy as lead. Lillian shouts his name in panic, while Wish awkwardly apologizes, explaining that his strength mysteriously vanished completely. He bravely claims he is fine, but a mysterious voice chimes in, saying his body simply is not used to it. Wish immediately looks around, totally caught off guard, when suddenly a cheerful young girl pops up from nowhere to congratulate his win. Lillian cannot believe a kid is out here, and Wish confusedly asks what she is doing in such a dangerous place. The mysterious girl introduces herself as Melfina, talking confidently, like she knows everything about his new hidden powers. Cheerful Melfina explains she only stepped in because Wish honestly looked like he had no clue what was happening. She reveals he has a special power belonging only to him, leaving poor Wish standing there completely baffled. Lillian definitely is not buying it, whispering to Wish that this kid is acting incredibly weird. She demands a plan, since this mysterious girl has been talking absolute nonsense. Panicking, Lilium keeps pushing the issue, warning Wish that this strange kid is clearly a huge danger. Wish glances at the smiling girl, fully admitting she is definitely suspicious. But before he finishes his thought, adorable Melfina starts pouting, telling Lilium she is actually being really mean. "You and I did not see this coming." She drops a massive bombshell, revealing that attitude got Lilium fired. Lilium absolutely loses her mind, yelling at the girl, while Wish stands there in complete shock. He tries calming things down, desperately demanding to know how a random kid knows her secret history, but Melfina just acts totally smug. Melfina says she can explain everything later, but suggests getting out of the dangerous forest first. Wish strongly agrees, glancing back at the massive defeated bear. Melfina just gives him a funny look, casually mentioning that the bear is actually incredibly weak. Wish is completely stunned as she calmly explains that local creatures turned violent due to a sealed dragon's toxic magic, which means there are absolutely swarms of even scarier monsters lurking nearby. The elf girl completely freaks out, asking if she means the legendary demon dragon. Though clueless, Wish has zero idea. Trembling, she explains, it is an ancient beast that could wipe out entire mountain ranges with just one single breath. Melfina cheerfully confirms that is the one, making the poor elf girl completely lose her mind. While they mentally process this insane danger, Melfina cheerfully reveals this very place is actually Fornium Forest. She casually explains they are standing directly where the ancient magic dragon Fornes is sealed. The panicking elf girl screams, terrified that legendary beast is here. She frantically starts dragging Wish away, yelling that they must escape immediately. But calm Melfina just cheerfully tells them to follow her instead. Taking a step, she confidently leads through the dense forest, while Wish and the elf follow close behind. Suddenly, Wish notices something absolutely crazy, nervously asking if those are actual glowing wings on her back. He is completely stunned, trying hard to process this, while she just warmly smiles and casually reveals she is actually a literal goddess named Melfina. She explains she came down here to stop the massive war between humans and demons, revealing she is the supreme god Lepi's youngest daughter. The shocked elf girl just stares at her halo. There is zero denying the amazing physical proof right there. Sweating nervously, she admits she has no choice but to accept Melfina is a true goddess. Yet, this still makes absolutely zero sense. We know the truth, right? Gods absolutely hate demons. Let's jump in. Wish wonders why Melfina isn't attacking at all, especially since she clearly knows exactly what he is. Suddenly, Melfina perks up, acting like she just remembered something totally massive. She grabs onto Wish's sleeve, happily calling out to him. Meanwhile, he just stands there, super confused about what she actually wants now. She finally explains that this entire thick forest is covered by a massive magical barrier. It is completely designed to confuse anyone stepping into these trees, keeping them totally trapped here forever. This epic seal is strong enough to hold back a demon dragon, and it works perfectly on regular humans too. She looks him right in the eye, super casually telling him that he probably won't be able to escape this wild place. The whole group starts moving through the thick trees while Wish nervously looks back, asking if this situation is actually super bad. Melfina gives him a confident look, happily saying it's completely fine, because she is literally a goddess. She cheerfully hops ahead, telling them they seriously better keep up and not fall behind, while Wish frantically yells for her to wait. Later on, they finally step out to a clear ridge under the stars, feeling super relieved that they actually managed to escape. Wish turns to Melfina, thanking her while giving her a gentle head pat. This completely catches the cute elf girl entirely off guard. Melfina just giggles happily at the attention, while Wish admits she really came through for them back in the woods. But then Wish suddenly stops, asking exactly why she was even hanging around in such a crazy, dangerous forest in the first place. Now watch this closely. She smiles, saying she was there specifically to meet his squad, calling him Big Brother Wish. It totally clicks then, as he realizes she definitely knew exactly who they were right from the very start. Melfina casually mentions she was actually watching them from the celestial realm, leaving the poor elf girl totally speechless. Melfina simply laughs happily, saying that of course, she knows everything going on. She teasingly tells Lilium that she knows exactly how close the elf and Big Brother Wish really are. This instantly sends Lilium into a total panic as she stammers back, repeating the word close, desperately trying to hide her massive embarrassment, yelling it's just a temporary truce and honestly, nothing more. Milfina absolutely isn't buying it though. She playfully asks if the elf is truly sure about that, glancing over at Wish to ask exactly what his personal take on this whole situation is. Wish seems genuinely confused by the funny question, but honestly admits he sees Lilium as a precious comrade. Hearing this, Lilium just crosses her arms, pouting and looking away with the cute little huff. Wish quickly tries breaking the awkward silence by just moving things along. As they walk, Milfina gets surprisingly serious, wondering why humans and demons constantly fight when they should honestly just get along. Milfina keeps walking forward, explaining that her father was completely convinced peace was an absolute lie. He truly believed they needed to defeat every single demon for the world to ever be safe. But Wish and Lilium both freeze right in their tracks, looking completely caught off guard by her super heavy words. I know what you are thinking, but wait. Wish says her name in surprise, while Lilium watches in total silence. Milfina suddenly turns around with an incredibly serious look, telling them she actually feels the exact same way they do. She passionately explains her biggest dream has always been for this world to be somewhere humans and demons happily live in harmony, even though things definitely did not go like that back in her home. She remembers bravely standing in front of her father and the other powerful leaders to share her ideas. But shockingly, absolutely nobody would even listen to her. She says they simply treated her like some highly annoying nuisance, and honestly, they never once even tried to understand her personal point of view. And honestly, it sounds like she ended up getting completely disowned just for holding onto those strong beliefs. Milfina spent a super long time feeling completely heartbroken and alone, just sitting around because she felt like she lacked the actual power to change anything all by herself. But that is exactly when she finally found a reason to hope again. Her eyes sparkle as she remembers the exact moment everything changed forever, which was the very second she saw Wish and Lilium together. Seeing a normal human and a high-level demon actually acting as teammates was literally all the proof she ever needed. Milfina happily goes on about how thrilled she was back then. She truly felt like finding them was absolute destiny. And Wish and Lilium just stand there completely floored while she explains her giant hope. She honestly believed that the two of them together were the ones who could finally change the world. She tightly clasps her hands together with the look of pure, total determination. That's the entire reason she traveled all this way. Because her absolute main goal is giving her brother Wish a very special blessing. Wish simply stares at her. He's trying hard to wrap his head around the idea of receiving a massive blessing. Lilium suddenly lets out a long, tired sigh, which makes Milfina hesitate and quickly call out her name. Lilium looks incredibly annoyed, bluntly stating that if all of that is true, then the human gods are basically the absolute worst. And Wish immediately starts panicking. He points at Lilium frantically, telling Milfina she really shouldn't say things like that right in front of her. That's where we leave it. Lilium crosses her arms, pouting. She stubbornly declares she hates what she hates, and nothing changes that. Stick with me here. She asks if this whole thing isn't just totally obvious. Lilium gets super heated, yelling about how anyone could simply toss away a wonderful girl like Milfina. She is clearly not holding back at all, loudly shouting that Leppy is the absolute worst. Leppy merely laughs it off, casually walking away. Lilium glares at his back and angrily asks what his problem is. Looking back, he smugly says her loud reaction was exactly what he had expected from her. While Milfina watches in pure surprise, Lilium warmly declares that if she has nowhere else to go, she should absolutely just travel with them. Milfina is completely stunned, but Wish cheerfully winks and gives a thumbs up, agreeing it is sudden, but thinking it is a brilliant idea. He warmly reaches out a hand, making it perfectly clear he would be thrilled to have her join their journey. Milfina starts tearing up with a massive smile, happily thanking them while calling out to her brother and to new friends. She gently clasps her hands together, offering a quiet prayer specifically for Wish. It is a beautiful moment. She prays for him to finally receive the awesome blessing he has been waiting for. Praying gently, Milfina thinks about Wish and his true power called insight. This epic skill lets him instantly spot the weakness of any strong opponent. She hopes her blessing makes those details crystal clear. Suddenly, Wish notices a bright, strange glow and realizes it is coming directly from Milfina. She is actually gifting him a legendary buff called Divine Protection. Watch this. Wish stares at the magical light, wondering what is happening to him since it feels absolutely amazing. He tells the group he feels absolutely incredible, like he could basically do anything right now. The elf girl looks him up and down. She says he looks exactly the same, though she admits he finally stopped making that stupid, goofy face. Wish flashes a super smug grin, feeling completely unstoppable after the buff. He tells Lilium he is going to test this new power on her immediately, but she completely ignores him, waving him off with a bored look like his funny threats do not matter at all. Suddenly, she freaks out because her body starts glowing. She cannot believe she is actually shining exactly like a bright lamp. Wish smiles, realizing his epic insight skill is working better than ever. He tells her this glowing light is actually her weakness. Lilium and Milfina just stand there, completely confused. They have no idea what he means while he cracks up laughing. Pointing right at her, he jokes that she is basically one giant weak spot, which makes Lilium absolutely lose her mind. She starts throwing a tantrum and hitting him, loudly yelling that cannot be true, while Milfina just cries out in the background. Lilium keeps screaming he is an absolute idiot, but Wish suddenly stops laughing. He notices something strange nearby and looks directly over the steep cliffside. We both felt that one, right? Spotting hidden buildings below, he asks if that is an actual village. Standing completely stunned while the girls keep hilariously fighting behind him, Wish gazes over the peaceful little town, trying to wrap his head around this unexpected situation. He starts asking if it is actually possible for them to settle down safely. Inside one of the houses, an older voice asks if they really want to stay in this village. Sitting at a rustic wooden table, Wish gives a very respectful yes, sir. He politely explains that if it is no problem, they were hoping to stay for a while. The man he is speaking to is Mayor Zebman, who does not seem stressed. He just eats his hearty food and grunts in response. Wish closely watches him, realizing this mayor is a seriously laid-back guy, which leaves the entire room feeling just a little bit awkward. Wish glances over at Lilium, who is just sitting there looking totally blank. He remembers stressing heavily over her demon features before they arrived. Surprisingly, it turns out that simply drinking a basic recovery potion was completely enough to make her pointy ears look human. He stares at her, totally amazed that a high-level demon could pass for a regular person just like that. Mayor Zebman finishes his meal, telling the group he would actually love for them to stay a while. Wish and Milfina are completely caught off guard by this sudden offer. The mayor continues, explaining there is a catch, because this village deals with some pretty strange, mysterious circumstances. Lilium listens closely, repeating his words back to him, quietly wondering what could be so weird about this peaceful place. The mayor simply grunts, starting to explain the wild history of this land. He tells them that 40 years ago, during the massive demon invasion, a bunch of people fled the capital of Asterion to start over. They ended up building 53 different settlements across the region, including the very spot they are sitting in right now. Zakin village was born from that tough struggle, but the problem is, the kingdom still stubbornly refuses to recognize them as an official town. They have been getting the cold shoulder from the government for decades, and it honestly feels like the higher-ups are basically blaming the poor refugees for fleeing in the first place. That is where we pause. The mayor mentions a massive sacred forest sitting between this village and the capital. You and I are jumping into an epic hidden village that everyone is too scared to enter, which perfectly keeps these outcasts safe from totally unwanted attention. But the leader offers a serious warning. If our awesome group stays to help out, the kingdom might quickly brand them as total rebels for teaming up with a village of complete outcasts. Mayor Zebman mentions that since they are merchants, chilling in an unofficial spot like this could totally wreck their solid reputation. Wish glances over, completely shocked that the mayor is actually being so considerate about their merchant business. The mayor goes over the evening plans, strongly suggesting they should simply sleep in a small hut right outside the village borders for their own complete safety. But Wish absolutely refuses to hide away, boldly telling the mayor they would actually prefer staying right inside the lively village with everyone. Shocked by the kid's bold confidence, the mayor asks if he is absolutely sure about getting so fully involved with them right now. Lilium just flashes a bright smile, saying it is zero problem today. Looking completely relaxed about this wild situation, she warmly explains that she already has a fantastic read on the chief's solid character. Plus, to add on, she watches the local kids cheerfully playing together, declaring how this absolutely does not seem like a bad place to her at all. The mayor takes a second to process everything before nodding and offering to show the squad to their brand new rooms. Walking right through the busy town center, Wish suddenly spots several nervous villagers huddled up and quietly whispering, making him feel something is super sketchy, and he strongly wonders what they are secretly discussing. Lilium notices the sudden dark shift, mentioning how the atmosphere is quickly getting incredibly tense around them. Now pay attention here because suddenly some guy starts screaming, calling these innocent villagers absolute pathetic peasants. A massive brute aggressively grabs a local's shirt, screaming at him to drop the proud act, while intensely demanding they immediately hurry up and hand over every single piece of valuable goods right now. Getting right into the terrified guy's face, he aggressively warns them against even thinking about hiding anything. He makes it absolutely clear that anyone daring to defy his orders is going to face the ultimate, terrible punishment. The poor villagers simply stand there in total silence, looking completely terrified. The huge bully keeps barking harsh orders to surrender items while violently trashing the place, making absolutely everyone jump. Caught entirely off guard, Wish demands to know who this massive jerk is, while Lilium watches in disgust, saying how incredibly cruel this whole scene looks. Mayor Zebman just stares at the ground and grunts, bitterly mentioning that those terrible guys have suddenly returned again. The sad mayor carefully explains that this aggressive guy is actually a kingdom official working directly for the local lord. Apparently, this jerk and his goons visit the village pretending to collect standard taxes. But the mayor says the sad reality is honestly a million times worse. This guy Logan is just a total thief who violently robs their food and valuable goods. Lilium completely loses her cool, asking what absolute nonsense this is, shouting that the corrupt kingdom has done exactly zero for these struggling people. She boldly stands right beside Wish, looking completely disgusted, declaring the whole situation is garbage. Meanwhile, Logan aggressively clicks his tongue while walking through the huge mess, demanding if this pathetic loot is absolutely everything. You and I both know what happens next. He calls the place pathetic, violently kicking barrels and yelling for better loot. Watching him violently trash the peaceful village, Lilium cannot hold back anymore, loudly calling this corrupt guy absolute, total trash. She angrily marches over to teach him a serious lesson, but the panicked mayor firmly grabs her, desperately begging her to wait, since they are real officials and she simply cannot get into massive trouble. Suddenly, Logan stops his rampage, spotting Mufina and immediately recognizing her. He intensely glares right at the girl and angrily asks what she is staring at. So, Mufina fearlessly looks him in the eye, boldly asking if he is absolute trash. Logan absolutely loses it and swings his sword, but Wish heroically grabs her just in time, fiercely demanding to know what this guy thinks he is doing, while Logan just lazily scratches his head, complaining. This is exactly why he absolutely hates peasants. He arrogantly looks down at his boots, loudly complaining about the mud splashing them, before aggressively telling them both to disappear forever. But Wish fiercely stares him down, firmly telling him to apologize. Logan gets even more intensely annoyed by the kid's bold attitude, demanding if he truly wants a fight, causing the mayor to completely freak out and beg Wish not to uselessly sacrifice himself for the village. Mufina watches in pure shock as Wish goes dead silent, and while the panicked mayor screams for them to run away immediately, the girl suddenly realizes this is definitely not just Wish acting like some noble hero making a huge sacrifice. It's something else entirely, because Wish is actually just completely furious. He is thinking about his friends getting hurt and how incredibly unfair everything has been. And as Logan firmly stands his ground, Wish draws his sword, pointing it directly at him. He tells the guy he won't be satisfied until he sends him flying, leading into an absolutely bizarre glow, starting to powerfully flare up inside his eyes. He declares that's it, and as his energy perfectly peaks, Mufina smiles. Trust me, you and I are absolutely going to love what happens next. Stick with me here. You and I are about to see exactly how Wish becomes an absolute cheat code. And he feels it too. His vision turns crystal clear, sharper than ever before, while Mufina just watches in awe as his real legendary potential finally wakes up. Boom! Glowing system screens pop right into thin air, showing off exactly what our guy can really do. A giant alert flashes weakness found. He instantly reads all of Logan's stats, from his armor down to his exact speed. Armed with that floating intel, Wish steps right past the totally confused guards and straight up calls Logan pure garbage. Our guy looks absolutely laser focused, challenging this massive brute to a fight right then and there. Logan refuses to back down, growling about the kid's terrible attitude, laughing it off, and asking if this little merchant actually thinks he stands a chance. One guard actually tries to stop them, warning that throwing blades is pure madness, but Logan barks at him to shut up and stay back. Wish completely agrees with that vibe, adding that Logan has been getting on his nerves too. He yells to bring it on, roasting the guy right to his face. Logan sneers, promising to beat him senseless as a warning. Preparing to strike, he swears to carve a painful lesson into the kid. Logan charges ahead with a massive swing, roaring that Wish will never disobey him. He throws his entire body into a crushing overhead strike, but Wish miraculously gets his guard up just in time. Logan clicks his tongue, annoyed that this kid actually stopped his heavy strike. Watch closely now. While they clash, Wish realizes he feels all of Logan's power, thanks to Melfina's blessing giving him the edge. Logan craters the ground, launching rocks everywhere, and screams at Wish, demanding to know if he seriously thinks he can just look away. Wish does not sweat it for a second, casually replying that he already sees everything coming. Logan roars, launching another gigantic slash, but Wish dances right past the heavy blade. Deciding playtime is over, he warns Logan he is coming. He executes an absolutely insane mid-air spin, moving way faster than any merchant ever could. Logan totally loses his mind in pure panic, wondering what kind of monster this kid is. Logan is reeling because our guy did not just dodge that massive swing, he actually delivered an incredibly clean counterattack. His footwork is lightning fast, and Logan just cannot process the idea of losing to some random teenager. He desperately grips his sword, but the sheer pressure is overwhelming. He quickly realizes he cannot possibly block every single incoming strike. Out in the village, people stand watching the battle, and the crowd is completely losing it. You see this, right? The crowd cannot believe a merchant is dominating. Lilium just smiles, bragging that it is easy since he ran with heroes. Mayor Zebman is absolutely stunned by this massive reveal. Lilium happily explains the adventurer system, showing how ranks climb from D to S, with the hero squad sitting right at the top. Pointing at the chart, she explains that every fighter's power is measured by these exact tiers. She proudly brags that Wish can easily one-shot demons despite being a merchant, leaving the mayor completely amazed. Watching the embarrassing beatdown, Lilium points out that Logan looks like a totally unranked nobody. At this point, it is incredibly obvious to everyone that Wish already has this fight won. Logan totally loses it, screaming and swearing that he refuses to be beaten by some brat. But then, his entire expression flips, claiming he was just waiting for this exact perfect moment. He brags about baiting Wish right into his attack range, hyping himself up and swearing he will never lose to a weak guy like this. Suddenly, Melfina spots something absolutely insane and screams out as his giant sword bursts into flames. Using a special sword skill, Logan pours everything into a gigantic flaming slash that tears up the earth, looking like it completely engulfs Wish. Logan starts laughing maniacally, bragging about landing a direct hit, declaring that the kid got exactly what he deserved. The blazing attack explodes with a bang. Logan screams in victory as the villagers and Mayor Zebman watch the smoke slowly clear. Logan eagerly waits for his win, but his face instantly drains of color when he spots the impossible. Through the dust and the flames, Wish is casually standing there without a single scratch. Mayor Zebman and Melfina check on the kid while Logan loses his mind, wondering how anyone survives that. Wish just chuckles and says, "Man." Lilium is not impressed though, noting they only got lucky because the brute is so inexperienced. Logan just stammers, looking completely shattered. Wish realizes the guy's status actually showed decent high-tier skills. But you and I know that is nothing compared to Hero 11 nuking whole castles in one hit. Stick with me here. Wish stands there with a huge smile, completely unfazed, asking Logan if they are continuing. Logan is shaking like crazy, sweating through his gear, finally realizing he cannot possibly win against someone this immensely powerful. Dropping to his knees, he admits total defeat, and the entire village just completely loses their minds. The crowd erupts, cheering and celebrating this massive win. Lilium is hyped they actually pulled it off, while Wish laughs along. But the party stops fast. Out of absolute nowhere, a massive tornado rips through town. Wish braces against the brutal gale, yelling out that the wind is getting way too strong. A heavy sound vibrates right through his chest. A roar? Lilium looks up, completely stammering, unable to believe what is appearing in the sky. A gigantic beast with scales and wings lands right in the middle. The demon dragon. Wish is completely floored, staring up at the terrifying creature, realizing it is the actual legendary dragon Fornese. The entire village erupts into pure, absolute chaos. People scream about a monster, running fast while one guy tries getting Mayor Zebman to move. But the old man stands completely frozen, saying, "Is useless." Zebman recognizes this creature as the actual guardian from the Sea of Trees legends. He is entirely convinced that everything is finished, and the world ends right here. One terrified guard totally loses it and starts sprinting, screaming for absolutely anyone to save him. But Logan is absolutely not letting him escape easily. Grabbing the guy by his clothes, he demands he stays. Logan is totally losing it. "Now pay attention." He promises money, begging for protection. Then someone yells, and the dragon's huge claw comes crashing down, sending those guards flying. Wish stares at the dragon, wondering if the massive beast is actually targeting Logan's group. Feeling intense heat, he grabs his sword while Logan books it, abandoning absolutely everyone else. Wish curses under his breath, realizing his instinct to help just landed him in a total nightmare. Suddenly, the dragon opens massive jaws right before him. Feeling immense pressure from Fornese, he knows this is a true brush with the end. Gritting his teeth, he fully acknowledges that this beast truly is the legendary symbol of terror everyone fears. The elf girl and Milfina come sprinting over, yelling his name, asking if he is okay. But Wish tells them to stop worrying. He says they must focus on evacuating all the villagers immediately. The elf girl snaps right back, telling him to stop being stupid, because taking that thing alone is impossible. Looking at the towering monster, Milfina warns him that Fornese is actually as strong as a demon lord. Milfina is completely panicking about this beast having actual demon lord tier strength. But Wish just looks back, acting totally cool, saying it will be fine, since he has her divine protection on his side. He looks back for confirmation, and Milfina just stares at him like he is crazy before totally losing it. Scratching her head in pure frustration, she yells, knowing he is never going to back down. Pointing straight at him, she shouts she will handle her part of the job and come right back. "You feel that tension, right?" Running off, she screams that if he falls, she will absolutely never forgive him. Watching them go, Wish yells he has got this. Now completely alone, he focuses on the dragon, and instantly, his special system ability kicks in. Spotting an opening. Standing his ground, the system directly alerts him that a weakness is spotted. Gritting his teeth, he realizes, against a high-level monster like this, he only gets one shot to strike the correct spot, which is right on its leg. Wish can clearly see that the monster's only real weak point is the front left leg. So, he decides to test exactly how far this new ability will go. The dragon unleashes a terrifying roar, snapping its massive jaws. Wish's eyes suddenly glow, realizing he can track every single move Fornese makes. The ability is totally working, even as this enormous dragon looms like a mountain. He tries figuring out how to maintain this crazy pace, quickly realizing that instead of a direct clash, his absolute best bet is just focusing on dodging everything. The beast swings a massive claw, shattering the ground with insane force. But Wish barely manages to jump clear. He stands there, breathing heavily. Trying to steady his racing heart, he tells himself he can actually win. Locking eyes with the beast, he knows that front left leg is his only target. If he just lands one single hit right there, it is over. Suddenly, the dragon's head lunges forward. He barely speaks before sprinting through the village streets, while the monster's colossal body literally smashes through every single house right behind his back. People flee as the dragon levels town. "Trust me, we need to see what happens next. Stick with me here." One girl asks if that wild sound was the dragon roaring, calling out for Wish. Wish is trapped right in the middle of the wreckage, staying low while the whole place is covered in dust and thick smoke. He realizes he just needs one perfect strike right on its weak point. But it won't be easy. The massive beast is towering right over him, making this entire battle feel like an absolutely impossible challenge to overcome. He slowly loses hope, thinking there is just no way they can defeat an opponent this absurd. But suddenly, A foot stomps firmly onto the ground as a confident voice refuses to let the dragon have its way. Lilium stands tall before Wish, bravely declaring she will never let him fall on her watch, while Melfina gives a massive shout to back her up. Wish can barely believe his eyes, calling out their names as they bravely stand there to protect him. Lilium strikes a fierce fighting stance, warning the huge dragon to prepare for what is coming next, pointing a confident finger at the massive beast. Lilium yells they are about to unleash their ultimate finishing strike. Meanwhile, Wish is still totally panicking in the background, desperately trying to figure out a safe way to escape in one piece. He tightly grips his sword, while his mind races, wondering what his next move should even be, especially since the giant dragon stands there and lets out a roar that rattles the entire area. Lilium and Melfina hold their ground as a deep voice mentions it has been ages since fighting anyone with real, actual backbone. Then the massive dragon looks right at them, saying the battle was fun and acknowledging them as humans. You saw that too, right? The group freezes in total shock because they cannot believe the monster actually just spoke. The beast explains it can easily talk, since it is on a totally different level than any average monster they have ever seen. Lilium isn't even scared anymore, simply shaking with pure rage. Pointing her finger, she shouts at the dragon, demanding to know how it dared to try and eliminate Wish like that. While Melfina fiercely stands by her side, the huge dragon looks down, asking if they are still worried about that roar from a bit ago, casually explaining it was actually just a weird way of saying thanks for giving it such a solid fight. Melfina completely loses it, angrily asking what kind of thank you involves nearly turning her into a total pile of ash. However, the massive dragon just casually points out that it specifically avoided hitting her for that exact reason, leaving her completely speechless. It actually apologizes for causing the group so much trouble, which is an incredibly weird vibe coming from a giant monster. Then it casually mentions it wasn't even hunting them, it was actually just chasing after some other guys. Wish is caught off guard, asking if the dragon is talking about Logan and his entire group. The dragon's eyes narrow, calling them complete jerks for setting fire to the forest where it makes its home. Turns out Logan was foolishly showing off a flashy new skill while his hyped friends enthusiastically cheered him on. This really pissed the mighty dragon off, since those fools just ran away without even trying to extinguish the fire. Logan completely loses his mind, sweating bullets as he realizes the hilarious, petty reason this giant dragon is hunting him. The massive dragon leans in, screaming about how much it absolutely hates the heat, while Logan cowers in the dirt, begging for mercy. We all agree this is wild, right? Wish watches the whole disaster, finally understanding this completely ridiculous situation. But then he starts wondering about the sea of trees, since it was supposed to have a strong magical barrier keeping everyone locked inside. The dragon looks right at them, asking how they even got out, making it extremely clear it didn't do anything to break the seal. Melfina speaks up, looking incredibly nervous, and shyly admits she actually turned the barrier off for a bit when they were leaving. She cheerfully explains the dragon probably just followed them out through the gap, reminding everyone she can do stuff like that because she is a literal goddess. Feeling pretty guilty about this entire dragon chasing situation, she politely bows her head and tells everyone she is really sorry. Wish simply takes it in stride, saying he is honestly just relieved to finally know exactly why things went totally sideways. Melfina cheers up instantly, while the village guards securely tie Logan up and drag him away, leaving him screaming about how much he hates his tragic life. Taking a look around the village, it is clear the buildings took some serious hits, but the amazing news is that nobody actually perished today. Wish stands there with a huge smile, feeling super lucky to be in one piece after absolutely everything that went down. The elf girl isn't nearly as chill, crossing her arms and complaining that she truly thought she was an absolute goner. Wish tries to keep things incredibly positive, saying the entire mess is finally over, until he hears someone suddenly starting to panic nearby. Mayor Zebman suddenly lets out this massive scream of pure despair, catching Wish completely off guard. The villagers quickly start gathering. Trust me, and I know it is not over yet. One guy points at the wreckage, while Melfina looks super confused as everyone realizes things are actually looking incredibly bad again. Wish walks over and asks the mayor if he is alright, but the old guy is just kneeling in the dirt, staring blankly at the shattered wood. Stick with me, this gets wild. The mayor explains the dragon just crushed their storehouse, and Wish instantly gets a terrible feeling. The mayor yells that their entire food supply is completely wiped out, leaving Wish and Milfina screaming in absolute, utter shock. Milfina totally panics, asking if they could maybe just go beg for help from the other nearby villages. But the mayor shoots that down, explaining they usually trade for everything, and now they have nothing left to offer. Milfina is left completely speechless, while Wish finally realizes just how incredibly bad this disaster has actually become for everyone. Wish turns to the giant dragon, hopelessly asking what they should do now, but the big lizard just grunts casually, suggesting they all go hunt in her forest instead, since it is absolutely packed with plenty of meat and fruit. Mayor Zebman looks like he might cry from pure relief, quickly asking if she is actually okay with them doing that. Wish rubs the back of his head, saying he is down to help since he is already mixed up in this mess. Instantly, the crowd of villagers starts jumping around, cheering like they just won the absolute lottery. Milfina finally relaxes, thinking they might actually pull through this, while Wish just lets out a tired little laugh. But then Wish remembers the forest is not entirely safe, secretly worrying they might encounter another giant bear again. Wish keeps thinking about that terrifying bear and figures he actually has a point. They are marching straight back into that unforgettable forest. Now watch closely, things are about to escalate. Deep inside the woods, a terrified girl is running, totally out of breath, clutching berries and wondering why she cannot escape. She breaks down crying, desperately begging for someone to help as a wolf pack closes in. But then boom, the dragon suddenly crashes into the clearing, telling Wish they have finally arrived. Wish deeply thanks the dragon for saving his skin, and the giant lizard just casually says, "It is no big deal." Lilium looks up at the massive trees, admitting she never thought she would actually return to this place. She stops to stare at her own hand, feeling like something is slightly off. Wish notices her zoning out and asks what is going on, but she just seems totally lost in thought. Lilium quickly realizes something is very strange here. She can feel an insane surge of power rushing right into her body. She stops completely, clearly feeling some wild energy bubbling up deep inside. Wish just stares at her like she is crazy, since he does not feel anything different at all. But then Wish spots something ahead and totally panics, yelling out in pure shock as he sees that girl from earlier completely cornered by a pack of hungry wolves in the clearing. Wish instantly sprints toward the fight, shouting that someone is about to get wrecked by those wild monsters. But the wolves turn on him instantly, lunging from both sides to block him from the girl. He draws his blade, cursing under his breath, realizing they are totally outnumbered and in serious trouble, until Lilium suddenly sprints right past him toward the wolves, confidently saying she is taking the lead. She looks back with a super confident smirk, telling him to just watch, because he is about to see what she can actually pull off. Lilium unleashes her magic, shouting out an ice bullet attack. Sharp shards of ice go flying straight into the wolves, forcefully knocking them all backward. You and I definitely did not expect that. Wish and Milfina just stand there completely frozen, watching this epic magic without saying a word. Wish totally loses his mind, yelling about Lilium actually using magic. Meanwhile, she just strikes a pro pose, casually bragging that it was absolutely nothing. She turns around with a massive grin, playfully asking if she is just the most amazing person he has ever seen. Clearly loving all the attention, she explains how she felt Mona filling up her entire body, giving her this huge, sudden confidence that she could actually pull it off. Wish is still struggling to process this entire crazy situation, asking why this is happening so fast, since she was completely powerless just a few minutes ago. That is when the dragon speaks up, saying he already figured this would happen. Since they are deep inside the sea of trees now, Wish looks up at the massive beast with a blank stare, asking what he is talking about. The dragon explains that this entire forest is packed with Mona pools. The deeper they go toward the center, the more incredibly powerful the energy gets. He asks if they have been here before, then points out they must have only been hanging around the very edge of the woods during their last little visit. The dragon keeps explaining the situation, saying if they were just on the forest edge, the Mona pools would not have done a single thing to help her. So even though Lilium managed to use a little magic, the furious wolf in front of them is not backing down, just holding its ground and aggressively growling. It turns out her attack barely left a scratch. Milfina completely loses it as the hungry predator gets even closer, making the whole situation feel way more terrifyingly desperate. So what do you and I think happens next? The young girl stays pinned, crying for help, while Wish desperately tries to find a way to step in. Stick with me here, we are jumping in right as time runs out, and the poor girl is about to get caught. But the dragon finally gets sick of the noise. He steps right up, glares the beasts in the eye, and tells them to scram. With just one absolute command, the wolves get absolutely blasted backward into the brush like hitting a solid wall. The dragon scoffs at how incredibly easy that was, while Wish instantly rushes over to the shaken girl, frantically asking if she is seriously hurt. She looks up with the shaky voice, saying she is okay. Then, with wide eyes, she deeply thanks them for stopping the wild pack. Calming down, she thanks them once more for the epic rescue, mentioning she actually lives right nearby in a cozy place called Zakin Village. The sweet girl introduces herself, revealing her name is Noah Arabe. Wish looks super awkward, asking why she is out here totally alone. She explains she was just gathering berries on a village errand, but somehow ended up getting completely lost. Wish starts explaining their side of the story, but Noah stays focused on her Zakin Village task. So, Wish finally comes clean, nervously admitting he is actually the guy who completely wrecked the village's food supply. He explains how the food got totally blown away. Hearing this, Noah finally puts the pieces together about why they are here. Wish says they are hunting for food to fix it. Noah is left absolutely stunned by the wild news. Now, pay close attention here. She points out that basic forest gathering will not be enough, because that ruined storage was incredibly special. It works just like an ice house, keeping everything fresh for super long. With that gone, she seriously wonders how they will feed the whole village. The brutal global warming here makes the environment extremely harsh. Because of intense heat, food ruins almost instantly. Milfina looks super concerned, asking what actually happens if someone accidentally eats a meal that is already totally spoiled. Noah explains it will completely wreck their stomach and cause some seriously awful pain. Wish is definitely not wanting to be in agony. Then the dragon quickly pipes up, asking if they even need to stress over food storage at all. He suggests just hunting for every single meal, but Lilium is totally against that plan. She admits hunting for every meal sounds like an absolute drag. Wish takes a long second to process all this. He gulps hard, realizing this food crisis is a much bigger mess than expected. Remembering his past life, he mentions how amazing a fridge would be. Wondering if it is possible, he leaves Noah totally lost, utterly confused while trying to say refrigerator. Milfina jumps in to explain, calling it a magic tool keeping everything cool inside, no matter how extremely hot the outside gets. Noah is totally amazed by this, especially when Milfina describes it as a special box running on pure electricity to preserve things. We both know this is funny. They just stand there looking blank during his electricity lesson. Total mystery to them. Sweating a bit, Wish simplifies it, explaining a fridge is basically an awesome ice house that does not even need ice. That finally clicks for Lilium. She immediately thinks, a cool tool like that sounds incredibly useful, but Noah suddenly looks pretty down, reminding everyone that getting something like that working in this world is basically 100% impossible. Lilium seriously wonders if this wild refrigerator thing is some kind of high-level magic artifact from the demons. But Milfina quickly jumps in, correcting her, casually mentioning it is actually a specialized tool for reincarnators. Then Milfina suddenly grabs Noah, boldly announcing to the whole group that she is one too. Noah can barely even process this. Frozen in shock, Noah listens as Milfina explains she smells the exact same divine god sent her dad. Possessed. This massive news hits Wish and Lilium like a speeding truck. They just stand there, jaws dropped, completely stunned, looking completely overwhelmed and exposed. Noah realizes her biggest secret is out. Instantly, the entire vibe of the group shifts. Lilium just stands there trying to absorb this huge news, while Noah nervously asks if they are seriously calling her a reincarnator. Wish starts looking pretty worried about this sudden intense vibe, as Milfina explains that reincarnators here build insane weapons like the Valvorn. Because of that, everyone assumes they are just incredibly dangerous monsters. Noticing their growing tension, Noah quickly steps up, begging them not to worry. Looking incredibly awkward, she openly admits it is true she is from another world, but she is honestly just a powerless nobody. She completely lacks those crazy cheat powers or epic magic that usually come with being a reincarnator. So what do you and I take from this? Tossed out for being useless, she survived all alone, till finally finding Zack in village. Trust me, you definitely want to see her next move. Wish stands there, completely stunned, picturing every terrible thing this poor girl faced, just trying to survive out there. Trust me, hearing about a past this painful and lonely will absolutely break your heart. Wish looks down, telling Noah he knows she's been through so much lately. But Lillian suddenly cuts in, saying they should just toss all that heavy stuff aside for now. She playfully messes with Wish's hair, while he casually asks if it's finally time to discuss that refrigerator. Noah completely agrees, so Wish asks Noah to explain the whole thing, and she is totally down to help out, suddenly getting a super serious look on her face. She starts by repeating what she said earlier, how a refrigerator is basically just a handy tool from her world, powered by this crazy stuff called electricity. But since it's an item from a totally different world, it absolutely won't work in this one. Lillian pauses to think it over, while Wish immediately starts wondering if there is another way. Noah looks at them both, asking if they really even need to build an entire refrigerator from scratch when the actual goal is just keeping things cold. Wish instantly catches onto exactly what she means. Lillian holds up a small shard of ice, pointing out that they could simply use magic. Specifically, she realizes her very own ice magic is the absolute perfect solution for the job. But then, she suddenly starts having some second thoughts. She explains that water mana is super low right now, thanks to global warming. Wish looks pretty bummed out by this news, until the giant dragon guy suddenly speaks up, telling them it is actually not a problem at all. Wish is totally confused by that, so the dragon asks if they somehow forgot about the massive mana pool he mentioned earlier, hidden deep inside the forest. He explains that because it's a magic essence pool, there is basically a mountain of power just sitting there. Lillian is completely amazed by what she sees, standing alongside the group in a clearing filled with floating glowing lights. She thinks this entire place is absolutely incredible, hardly believing there is this much water magic essence just hanging around. Plus, she clearly notices that the mana in this spot is way more active than normal. It has so much energy. She looks around, smiling, huge, saying she has never been to a place that felt this comfortable before. So, the giant dragon asks her a serious question. He wants to know if she can use this extra mana to create ice that never melts. Lillian gets a super determined look, pumping herself up and saying she can absolutely pull it off. Lillian looks more hyped than ever, tightly clenching her fists and telling everyone to bring it on. But Wish just stands there totally confused, looking up at the dragon and asking what she is even doing. The dragon explains that she is likely focusing her mind and gathering all her mana together, mentioning that using this much magic takes some serious concentration, completely catching Wish off guard. Now pay attention here. Wish repeats those words, thinking about how wild this high-powered magic will be. And right then, the entire area just absolutely erupts. A massive shockwave slams into the group, catching everyone by surprise. It leaves Wish struggling to stay on his feet, desperately trying to figure out what the heck is happening. A giant swirling vortex of energy blasts into the air right in front of them. The pressure is so heavy that Wish can barely even catch his breath. He grunts through the intense wind, seriously worried that the raw force is literally going to blow him away, while he stares into the light, wondering if he is finally seeing what Lillian is truly capable of. When she stops holding back, Lillian just looks at her hands with a calm smile, saying she hasn't felt this amazing in forever. She can feel the raw power surging right through her body. Lillian gets into position and readies her hands. She tells the group it is finally time to show what she's got. Boom! A massive energy burst erupts, and a giant wave of pure ice magic completely reshapes the whole area. Wish is totally blindsided by the sudden force, but Lillian just cheers, absolutely thrilled that she finished her big move. She strikes a cute pose with a small ice flower on her head, proudly announcing that her special ice magic is officially complete. I know what you're thinking. Lillian asks if she's amazing, but Wish is just standing there, totally judging her for such a lame move. Name. Despite the weird name, Wish looks at the frosty results and admits he never expected her actual power to be this insane. Her stats show she is actually level 100 with insane magic points. That puts her on a tier way beyond Forney. The dragon watches her from the side, telling Wish that this girl is an absolute monster. The dragon mentions she was apparently a huge executive in the Demon Lord's army, but Wish says she is even more than that, while she happily plays around in the background. The dragon looks over and asks if he just said something, but Wish simply shakes it off, telling him it is nothing important. Looking back at everything, Wish casually mentions that the guy really was something else. And just like us, he admits he's absolutely amazed. Stick with me here. The dragon goes quiet, finally asking Wish if that intense woman scares him. Wish? He just pauses to think about it. He admits her insane power totally caught him off guard. If someone asked if he was scared, he would probably hesitate answering. But he quickly clarifies something important. That fear is strictly for her magic power, not for her. Right then, Lillian stands there shivering and whining about the freezing cold. Wish simply points out she doesn't exactly look terrifying right now. Lillian cries out for Wish to wait up. Wish yells back, asking if she is seriously that cold, leaving the dragon watching this funny scene. The dragon tells Wish he actually loves that part about him. The elf girl cheers that the magic ice is finally ready. Wish gets super hyped, telling everyone they will finish the fridge today. Everyone throws their hands up and cheers loudly. After that, they all put their heads together and get straight to work building a magical refrigerator. Wish explains they are using special wood from the forest for keeping things cold. They nail treated boards inside, using water magic to trap the cold air inside. All while Lillian keeps casting her awesome magic. The whole building project starts moving incredibly fast. Soon, the group stands back and cheers because the brand new building is officially finished and ready. Watch closely here. Wish calls the villagers over, getting their attention, and points right at the open door for them to see. Smiling super wide, he proudly tells the entire crowd that this is the village's brand new food storehouse. The team shows off the inside, packed with supplies and glowing ice. Wish confidently calls it a refrigerator. One village guy is absolutely shocked, amazed that the glowing ice flower never melts, even when touched directly. Noah is just thrilled, escaping the heat, mentioning how cool it feels inside. Another guy shouts loudly that they finally never have to worry about food again. Even the mayor gets super emotional, bowing deeply to Wish and expressing how incredibly thankful everyone truly is. He declares the entire village has been saved because of them. Everyone stands around with huge smiles. Zebman actually starts tearing up, thanking the awesome team one more time. He is so deeply moved, he grabs Wish's hand, while Lillian casually says it was no big deal. Wish looks a bit overwhelmed, but later on, the team takes a nice break. Lillian mentions feeling super glad the people are happy. Wish tries playing it down, claiming he did nothing special. Lillian instantly calls him out, asking what he is even saying. She tells him straight up that they made those people smile. She proudly adds it was a pretty great thing to do. Wish finally agrees with a warm grin. Then Milfina chimes in, saying they really built something totally incredible together. Milfina leans in extremely close, asking Wish if he noticed something. She looks struck by a massive idea as Lillian mentions the refrigerator they just finished. You feel this shift, right? Milfina stares at the room, saying this might change the whole world. Lillian just stares at the machine. Wish repeats that idea of changing the world, looking totally lost and wondering what she means. So Milfina happily starts explaining her brilliant line of thinking. She points out the core of this refrigerator is magical ice that never melts. Wish nods, agreeing. That is true. Milfina gets super excited, telling him to just imagine if this amazing technology spread across the world. Wish pauses to think about that global scale. Milfina explains how millions could finally keep their food super fresh for a very long time. Milfina says she guesses that is how it works, and Wish fully agrees she is right. But then, he suddenly stops, telling her to wait a second. A brilliant light bulb goes off, making him think about how moving food works. He knows keeping stuff fresh takes expensive ice, which just makes the market prices go absolutely crazy. So only the super rich can actually afford eating well. But with this refrigerator, the business costs would plummet. Anyone could keep food fresh and move it around for way less money than ever before. Wish pictures a huge market revolution. He thinks about how these machines will totally change everyone's lives forever. Milfina leans in with a massive smile, asking if she is right and reminding him she predicted this. Wish looks right at her, finally getting the big picture. He tells her he built something incredibly amazing. He gets totally hyped up, calling it amazing. Lillian just stands there, realizing the whole world will change. Milfina starts thinking deeply about the future, saying if things actually go that way, then obviously way less food is ever going to rot or hit the trash. Trust me, that's huge. Once food travels everywhere, prices crash. Wish looks totally stunned as she says even the hardest workers will finally eat their fill. Stick with me here. We are diving right in. She points out at the village, showing him his refrigerator. Already saved this town. And a local guy shares how grateful they truly are. A village woman smiles brightly, adding that with this brand new machine, nobody will go hungry anymore. Everyone around them is so incredibly happy, fully knowing their lives will be way better from now on. The whole crowd is totally hyped up, with folks talking about how awesome this tech is and how amazing it will be for them. Mayor Zebman gets super emotional, telling Milfina they honestly cannot thank Wish and his amazing friends enough for everything they have actually done. Wish looks way ahead, thinking deeply about how he can finally start enriching the lives of people all over the world with his new tech. And he excitedly shouts that this is exactly what a merchant's job should be. He is fully determined to make the entire world way more prosperous, and Lillian just smiles, agreeing that using a refrigerator is absolutely the perfect way to make that happen. Wish watches his team, realizing that with incredible friends like Milfina and Noah alongside him, absolutely nothing will stop him from reaching his big goals. He gets super fired up, giving a massive thumbs up as he officially announces the start of his huge refrigerator distribution plan to the cheering crowd. Everyone happily shouts together to finally get things moving. Later that night, in a nearby city, the streets stay completely quiet, but the tall buildings are still standing under the glowing stars. Moving inside a local tavern, the mood is definitely not happy. One lone guy sits at a table, just staring at his drink in total silence, like something went horribly wrong. Logan takes a hard drink and curses aloud, wondering what the heck is going on with that village and how everything got so messed up. He thinks back to finding a tiny opening to barely escape in one piece. But the guy is obviously still completely rattled right now. Logan's mind races with crazy images of that terrifying dragon, completely convinced that taming a wild beast like that is simply impossible for any normal human. He starts totally losing it in the middle of the tavern, screaming about hating that merchant named Wish. He slams his drink onto the table with all his strength, loudly shouting that this entire messed up situation just totally angers him. Now watch closely. Logan sits there sweating and looking completely wrecked, totally missing the mysterious hooded guy watching him from across the room. The guy from the back of the bar walks over, asking Logan if he is actually still breathing. This catches him completely off guard, because the stranger wants to hear the rest of that wild story. He just yelled. He leans in closer, and Logan slowly starts to recognize the hidden face. His eyes go completely wide, barely getting any words out as the guy pulls his hood back to reveal he is actually the famous legendary hero. Logan's jaw literally drops, realizing he is staring right at Ravan, the absolute top-tier legend everyone knows. Logan starts laughing nervously, telling Ravan that he never in a million years would have ever expected to find the hero chilling in a place like this. Ravan is just relaxing at the bar, acting like he does not have a single care in the world as he tells the barkeep to pour a drink. Logan starts thinking things over, realizing it has actually been a really long time since he heard any fresh rumors about the hero's main party. He asks Ravan if the Epic group is actually in town for a quest or some other major business. Ravan takes a slow sip, thinking about just how incredibly quiet the party has been lately, while someone in the back of the building is heard loudly yelling about having absolutely zero money. This leads into a flashback where Gaiarius is absolutely losing his mind, demanding to know what is happening and who used all their supplies. One of the guys just laughs it off, asking if they ran out of stuff because they spent everything gorging on bull bear meat and super expensive premium liquor. He is just standing there smiling, talking about how amazing the food and drinks were like it is nothing. Gaiarius is not having it though, yelling about why they lack potions since they almost got completely wiped out in battle out there. Mage Pal tries to shift the blame, quickly saying Wish is the guy handling all the items, while Sage Noel tells the loud guys to stop taking their angry frustration out on her. You and I know it is escalating. Back in the present, Ravan slams his mug down, cutting the small talk to demand everything about Zack and that village. Ravan closes his eyes like he finally gets the picture, telling Logan he actually understands the whole situation. He decides he might as well head out, while Logan watches him leave, saying he is going to pay those people a direct visit himself. Ravan gets this incredibly intense, creepy look in his eyes, whispering he really cannot wait to see Wish again. Back at the inn, someone starts loudly yelling from inside one of the rooms. It is Garius, and he is losing his mind, showing Mage Pal his massive sword is now completely chipped. Ravan is just walking through the hallway, snapping back that he has zero idea how he is supposed to know about their gear. What do we make of this? He rubs his pounding head, complaining that now he has to worry about weapon maintenance on top of everything else. Stick with me here. Things are completely falling apart as he admits being sick of all this recent drama with loans and FEs eating them alive. Garius hits his absolute breaking point and starts screaming at everyone to stop messing around. He challenges Mage Pal to a fight, while Sage Noel just stands there desperately trying to get them both to knock it off before things get worse. With Wish suddenly gone, the entire party's mood is completely trashed. They are absolutely miserable, and Ravan knows it is all because of that guy. Noel looks totally panicked, realizing Wish did not even finish his tasks before leaving their group. Ravan furiously clutches his head, cursing Wish for dragging them down. He decides they have absolutely no choice but to find a brand new merchant right away. Garius grabs a new guy and totally loses his temper, screaming at him to stop messing around and demanding to know if he is actually a merchant. The poor guy is terrified and shaking while apologizing. The workload is just completely insane. Between prepping all the gear and dealing with the entire guild, they still must manage the money, map out the dungeons, and gather info on everything before they can even move. The new merchant is completely losing it, crying that there is no way he can handle this massive workload. It is just too much for one person. So Levin gets right in his face, trash talking and saying the guy has a massive mouth for being so bad. He brings up how even Wish, who he called total baggage, used to handle all this stuff without any problems, which just makes the poor new guy freak out even more. He is literally shaking and screaming from the pressure. Later, Levin starts sweating bullets as everything just keeps falling entirely apart. Now watch this. He cannot figure out why Zero plans are working anymore. He tries hyping himself up, remembering he is the hero, but remains totally stuck on the fact that everything is a disaster just because one single guy is gone. But then a dark look hits his face, and he realizes a perfect solution. He will simply let Wish back into the hero party for now. He figures once Wish is not useful anymore, he will just dump him again, believing the guy lacks any real talent anyway. Meanwhile, Levin is completely convinced that Wish should feel honored just to be helping out someone as totally important as him. Moving forward, Garius and Pal finally reach their destination, but they both look completely wiped out from that exhausting trip. Garius yells at the top of his lungs, announcing they finally reach the village where Wish is hiding out. He is clearly not happy about being there. Pal looks around, complaining about how extremely trashy the houses are, like some dumpy frontier town, and Noel totally agrees, calling the whole place absolutely disgusting. Pal suddenly stops looking curious, asking for more information on exactly what their former teammate has been up to lately. She simply mentions that according to some guy Levin talked to, Wish is supposedly spending his time making a weird magic tool called a refrigerator, which sounds pretty pointless to her. Then Pal wonders out loud if the guy will even return to their party willingly, which just makes Garius sound completely confused, like the answer should be super obvious. Garius gets a very cocky look on his face, saying they are basically doing the guy a massive favor just by traveling all this way to see him. As you and I see this audacity. Walking up the hill, Garius acts tough, saying Wish should cry tears of joy they even bothered coming for him. But then Pal suddenly spots something catching her eye. She notices a strange building nearby and asks what she is looking at because something feels off. Meanwhile, Wish is busy working, lugging a heavy wooden crate filled with scrolls and tools like another normal day until he suddenly stops in his tracks. He looks totally shocked, asking what on earth he is seeing in front of him. Wish spots a big shop sign stopping in his tracks, realizing he is looking at the magic tool everyone mentioned, and he wonders what he is even supposed to do with the strange thing. But his words trail off, seeing something else entirely different. He spots Hero Levin standing right there with the entire group and whispers his name. He is totally floored seeing them, leading both him and Noel into absolute panic. As Wish nervously asks why the legendary hero party would ever show up in a place like this, Levin smoothly explains that a lot changed since they kicked him out, and he decided Wish is somewhat useful now. This just makes Wish repeat the word chance in pure disbelief as Levin announces he decided to give him another grand shot. Levin puts a heavy hand on Wish's shoulder, telling him the huge news. He is officially letting him back into the hero party. Then he leans in with a very smug smile, asking if he is coming back, acting like Wish would never say no. Wish looks completely miserable and terribly stressed out before giving a simple no. But Levin does not even listen, telling him they must save the world, saying they should just let bygones be bygones like it is incredibly easy. Levin confidently doubles down and tells Wish that the hero party actually needs his power. So what do we learn here? Wish simply stands there, completely overwhelmed before finally turning him down saying he is happy. They asked, but truly sorry. Let's jump into this wild story. This village treats him wonderfully, and honestly, every single person here means the absolute world to him because he has finally managed to make some genuine, caring friends for once. Wish tries explaining how great they are, but Levin totally shuts him down right there with the cold, fake laugh. The cheerful vibe shatters instantly as Levin chuckles to himself, making Wish is super anxious. He asks what is wrong, but Levin shoots him a really nasty glare, claiming he has already heard absolutely everything about what Wish is up to. Wish is totally stunned when Levin starts mocking him for just foolishly playing around with magic tools. Levin keeps pushing, saying he is honestly shocked that a former member of the hero party would sink so incredibly low. He acts like it is totally pathetic that Wish is hiding out here doing stupid arts and crafts in secret. Levin lets out a heavy sigh, complaining that this entire conversation is becoming a really annoying, huge hassle. Glancing at the building, he directly brings up that silly little toy Wish has been working on lately. He casually hints that smashing the thing might finally make Wish obedient. This leaves Wish looking absolutely terrified, and he desperately calls out Levin's name to stop him right there. But Levin just tells him to calm down, while he slowly starts reaching down for his weapon. Flashing a dark grin, he says Wish should feel honored, since there is nothing left holding him back anymore. So he will have zero choice but to crawl back and work for the hero party like before. Now watch closely here. Levin instantly triggers a high-level sword skill, and the ground literally explodes as he swings his blade with pure, insane power. Wish grunts as the heavy shockwave slams into him, but he immediately realizes he has seen this exact technique before. Wish's eyes shoot wide open. Something is very, very wrong. He tries telling himself it is different, but the raw, sheer force of this strike is way beyond his expectations. He cannot even finish that thought before the entire area is swallowed up by a massive, dusty energy explosion while the other members just watch. Levin stands confidently over the mess, calling Wish an absolute fool for even attempting to block a strike like that. Since he has to drag him back anyway, he figures he should finish the job properly. He aggressively promises to drill the party's rules right back into Wish's stubborn head for good. Meanwhile, Wish is left completely hunched over, desperately struggling for air inside that thick, dusty smoke. Garius bursts out laughing from the sidelines, calling this the exact power he expects from Levin. While Noel and Pal proudly look on with smug grins. Noel loudly brags that this happens to anyone defying them. Levin just smirks proudly at the crazy destruction. He actually wonders if he went just a bit too far with that strike. Glancing down, figures it is perfectly fine. Even if it is slightly annoying, he will just casually drag Wish all the way back to the capital. But get this, Wish suddenly stands back up, catching his breath. You and I both see Levin completely lose his mind, screaming to know how this kid is somehow still standing after taking a massive hit like that. Wish quickly wipes the heavy sweat off his face, quietly admitting to himself, it was incredibly close. There, he thinks back to the absolute last second when he desperately moved to survive that crazy, magical blast. He is glad he extinguished those flames in time, but things look bad since his hands are currently shaking and going totally, completely numb. He realizes Levin possesses power on a completely different level compared to Logan, and it is definitely starting to look like he is in serious trouble here. Instead of backing off, Wish surviving only makes Levin incredibly angry and far more fired up to battle. Levin viciously lashes out with a giant swing, completely shattering a huge rock right in front of Wish. Clicking his tongue, Levin suddenly realizes Wish was actually aiming for his head. He simply cannot believe this kid is pushing him back. Levin wildly skids across the dirt to balance himself, while Wish stays aggressively on the offensive right now. He moves so fast, he becomes a complete blur, making it super clear. Wish is feeling intense pressure. Grunting right through his pain, he tells Levin to stop. But he has absolutely zero choice but to keep swinging, throwing his entire weight into a massive counterattack. The observing party members are stunned, and Pal is completely confused. She asks if this is even real, while Garius just stands there sweating nervously. He loudly yells that there is absolutely no way this should be happening. He is watching a simple luggage carrier go totally toe-to-toe with a legend. It makes zero sense to him, and he cannot fathom how someone like Wish is actually holding his ground. Looking completely evenly matched, Levin lets out a furious roar, throwing another incredibly heavy strike to end this epic clash right here and right now. Levin is visibly sweating, angrily cursing under his breath. He is clearly hitting a wall, totally wondering why absolutely none of his attacks are landing. He keeps frantically wondering how this kid is dodging everything. So what do we make of this? Levin remembers. Wish is just a merchant, totally baffled by this wild fight. He sees the kid visibly shaking, and honestly, it is driving him completely out of his mind. Stick with me, we are about to watch a random guy totally break a hero. His temper boils over, warning Wish not to mess with him anymore. He refuses to accept this absolute humiliation. As the chosen hero, there is zero chance he should fear a simple luggage carrier. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he drops into a battle stance, rejecting reality right now. He is ready to wreck everything to win. Levin pours his entire soul into this next strike, confident the massive area of effect makes escaping completely impossible. Energy sweeps out while Garius screams at him to stop. Noel panics, asking if he wants Wish eliminated, but our boy holds firm. Wish realizes dodging this massive blast is completely off the table. He takes one deep breath and tells himself to lock in. Time slows to a crawl as his past battles flash by. He notes Levin is fast, but Forney's was leagues above, and Lilium, her magic was way more terrifying than this attack. Wish knows he can conquer absolutely anyone, no matter their raw power, if he just finds that weakness. That logic totally applies even when fighting a famous, high-level hero. Now, pay close attention here. Wish finally moves, unleashing a secret sword technique to counter it. Levin fires off his ultimate meteor burst with blinding, wild fury. The whole battlefield explodes. Garius and the girls shield their eyes from the blinding flash. Under the crushing pressure and thick smoke, Wish actually collides head-on. A massive clash rings out through the air, and Levin looks absolutely stunned. He yells that his blade cannot be losing, but Wish is not stopping, spinning his momentum into an absolutely devastating follow-up strike. The speed is so insane that the heavy impact shatters his grip. The legendary sword flies high into the sky, leaving the hero defenseless. Levin realizes centrifugal force beat him, but desperately calls it a fluke. His massive ego simply cannot process losing to a weak guy like Wish right now. Wish stares him down, calmly declaring it over, while Levin internally screams that this nightmare cannot be real. Wish lands one final blow, sending Levin stumbling backward and gasping hard. Barely able to speak, he mutters, asking how this even happened. Looking down, Wish points out the chipped, legendary blade. He notes Levin completely skipped weapon maintenance, leaving a glaring weakness that was way too easy to exploit. Wish simply tells him to surrender right now, since dragging this battle out is totally pointless. Muttering that word, his face twists into a mask of pure rage. He is absolutely not letting a carrier talk down to him. He completely snaps, yelling not to get cocky. You and I both knew this. Levin screams that one lucky move guarantees absolutely nothing. The ground starts violently shaking from the raw power Levin forces out. Wish has to brace himself as the raging hero charges a massive blast. He hates being looked down on by trash, screaming at the top of his lungs that Wish cannot give a hero orders. Watching that insane energy spike, Wish realizes things are going south fast. He is trapped. He knows there is zero chance to dodge this massive incoming blast. But suddenly, the attack freezes solid. Ice aggressively climbs up Levin, leaving him completely baffled. Garius tries moving, but his legs are frozen shut. Pal panics, realizing her magic resistance is completely useless here. Levin just stands shaking. He cannot believe someone is actually overpowering him. In his mind, getting magically sealed at level 90 should be flat out impossible. Just as the clearing dust finally settles, a chilling voice echoes out. Lilium appears right beside Wish, telling these heroes they messed up big time. She looks beyond furious that they attacked her favorite person. Reaching her hand out, she fiercely yells, asking what they think they are doing. The ice spreads rapidly, locking his arm completely as Lilium stands within a massive frost storm. Levin absolutely loses it, demanding her identity, while Wish looks up and recognizes her instantly. Everyone stares in absolute shock, wondering if this is the legendary demon herself. But Lilium is clearly not playing games today. She makes it crystal clear. Anyone targeting her precious people will pay a heavy price. Looking entirely done with them, she declares, they crossed the line. A massive explosion of ice erupts, sending dangerous shards everywhere to trap the party. Trust me on this one. Garius hits the hard ground, completely paralyzed by that heavy, freezing pressure. Stick with me here. Levin is shaking, wondering what kind of insane, freezing magic is hitting them. Paul turns totally pale, quickly realizing they are dealing with abyss ice. It is the legendary Lilium. Noelle suddenly remembers the dark history, realizing she is the exact demon general who led that massive attack on the capital. Mage Pal is trembling, completely terrified, asking if this is really the strongest female executive from the Demon Lord army. Garius is completely losing it, yelling that this must be a joke. Meanwhile, Levin just glares at Lilium, aggressively demanding to know why an absolute monster like her is hanging around here. But then, he suddenly stops. A strange thought pops into his head, telling himself to wait. He remembers the last big war where she never showed her face and just ran. So he confidently figures her actual fighting skills are probably not even great. If she is all magic and no talent, taking her down right here should be a total piece of cake. A nasty smirk crawls across his face as he decides to wreck her first, then take his sweet time making Wish suffer. But Lilium just looks at him like absolute trash, saying he smells like a loser. Suddenly, Lilium gets caught in a massive blast, flying backward. Meanwhile, Levin pushes right through the thick smoke and debris, gritting his teeth to keep moving. Garius loudly yells out for Levin to be careful. Over on the side, Wish is still groaning on the ground. Levin glares at the demon girl, telling her she has the nasty smell of a villain. Lilium ignores the insult, thinking back to her time in the Demon Lord army, where other leaders treated her like complete garbage. She looks up with pure anger, loudly screaming at everyone to stop underestimating her right now. Now watch this. Massive ice spikes crash through buildings, completely wrecking everything. She complains that just thinking about those guys makes her super angry. Meanwhile, Wish watches closely from the sidelines, realizing she is actually using her ice magic flawlessly now. He keeps staring, noticing something feels off. Wish looks at the status screen and cannot believe his eyes. The title former Demon King is right there. Lilium starts completely losing it, holding her head and screaming back in pure, total disbelief. Levin shouts about her being a Demon King, while Garius stands there wondering if this is real. Lilium gives a super sheepish smile, simply asking if she forgot to mention it. Wish loudly yells he definitely never heard that, but she just laughs it off, telling him it is totally fine, since it is just ancient history anyway. She claims she is having more fun now, so nobody should care, leaving Wish looking totally exhausted by her logic. He sighs, noticing her stats are actually through the roof and way higher than before. Lilium brags about finding a magic pool to refill her energy. While she talks, Levin finally snaps, loudly yelling at them to focus. He looks completely desperate, intensely shouting that they only came all this way to bring their friend back home. Levin is totally fed up, telling Wish there is no place for him anymore, while Garius just stands back. You saw that too, right? Lilium finds the comrade idea hilarious, asking if Levin is serious. Levin angrily snaps back, demanding to know what it even matters if they were friends once. Lilium shuts him down right away. She tells him he is out of luck. Wish is officially one of them now. She makes it loud and clear that nobody even invited his group here anyway. She coldly mocks Levin, asking if he forgot what being frozen solid feels like, leaving him totally speechless and violently shaking. Meanwhile, Wish just quietly watches this entire intense confrontation happen right before him. Wish finally speaks up, calling Levin by name to end this madness. He calmly tells them that if his recent behavior caused problems for the group, he is truly sorry. But he confidently adds he has zero intention of ever going back to their party, no matter what. Wish looks at the sky, deadly serious, quietly saying he finally found exactly what he wanted. Standing in the village with everyone watching, he finally tells Levin that this is exactly where he truly belongs. He looks Levin dead in the eyes, making it clear that Levin will end up regretting all of this. But Levin is totally losing it, sweating and aggressively yelling that he will make Wish regret ever leaving their epic group. Lilium steps in to stop Levin while he acts tough. But Wish just turns his back on the mess, giving a confident smile, saying if a fight ever happens, he will gladly be their opponent. He mentions he will not be alone either, because he will have his new comrades right by his side. You and I just watched this massive dragon start flying. Stick with me here. Gliding through the air, the massive beast gazes down, asking Wish if letting those arrogant guys just walk away was truly a smart move. Wish just sits back, completely relaxed. He tells the dragon that despite being a huge headache, they are still the hero party. Wish tells the squad he totally understands their pure shock. Meanwhile, Milfina points up, completely losing her mind. She stares at the massive sky dragon with her mouth wide open, absorbing the epic view. Noah looks visibly shaken, mentioning how absolutely wild it is that they were just wandering the woods while all this madness was happening. But Wish just smiles warmly, saying it is actually great they avoided it. He is simply glad everyone is totally safe. Suddenly, now watch closely, Milfina shouts his name to snap him back, pointing eagerly at the horizon. She tells everyone their final destination is finally standing right there in front of them. The capital city of Astrian finally appears, looking absolutely massive, with its gigantic stone walls and towering castle spires. Approaching the city buildings, Milfina does a huge stretch with a satisfied sigh, cheerfully bragging that those business negotiations for the refrigerators went absolutely perfectly without a single hitch. Wish watches her, looking incredibly relieved as he mentions they locked down a solid distribution route, meaning they can finally start selling all their amazing goods soon. Milfina gets completely hyped, cheering that they have finally arrived, and Wish just nods along quietly. You feel that shift. The vibe flips when a clumsy girl carrying a basket slams into someone, sending fruit flying absolutely everywhere. She panics and apologizes wildly, scrambling to grab everything, which instantly catches Wish's attention. He stares like he recognizes her. Noah looks completely confused, while Wish starts flashing back to exactly how rough things used to be for him. He remembers the exact day he left the city to forge his own path. He used to walk these identical streets totally alone, but things are so completely different now. He realizes he has these incredible friends by his side. He tells himself that absolutely nobody deserves garbage treatment, and there is genuinely no single right way to live your life. So, being a great guy, he immediately drops down to help the girl gather her fruit. The girl looks up from the dirt, completely stunned by who is standing right there. She can barely speak as she realizes it is Wish, and he is gently reaching his hand out. And here is what we love to see. He tells her that if her current life is just too incredibly painful, then she doesn't have to stay. He gives her a warm smile and asks if she simply wants to join their crew instead.